Right, guys, we are back, still talking about MIDI in Pro Tools, and today, continuing the video from the previous video, we're basically now going to deal with sequencing. But first, before I continue, I would like to add, and I'd advise everybody that whenever you add or whenever you work within a Pro Tools session, just create a master track for yourself. Track new, call it a master fader. You will always want your master fader that represents your entire session to be in stereo. So we're going to make sure that stereo, we're going to choose master fader, which is the sum of everything that plays through a particular output, basically. And we're going to call that master, and it's going to pop up right there. I'm going to click that and drag that right there to my far left. Cool. Another track that you might want to create is a click track. Click track, obviously, if you know, click tracks are tracks that will play you on tempo. Basically, it's the do 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 click track, right? Clicks. So how you add a click track in MIDI or in Pro Tools, basically, for whatever session, whether it's an audio session, you've got audio tracks and you want to add a click track on there, or you've got MIDI tracks, or you have a combination of MIDI and audio hybrid like that. Adding a click track is the same, doesn't change. You go to track and then you go to create right here at the bottom, click track. And there you go, you'll have a click track. I'm just going to close the instrument section from there so that we don't get too confused. So I'm going to close instrument section, and then we're going to have this basically now a click track that will click every single time according to the tempo that you've created or chosen, or the tempo that you're working with. And we're going to have a master fader right here that will basically tell us if we're clipping or not, right? Cool. So now we're going to start sequencing MIDI basically within Pro Tools, and I'm going to go to the edit window for that. So I'm going to command equals or control equals on Pro Tool on Windows. As you can see, all my tracks are there. Here are my aux tracks, right? The green tracks, and then the purple tracks are basically my MIDI tracks. Then the brown tracks are basically my instrument tracks, right? So now, how you change tempo, let's just dive into that. Tempo can be changed right here in the tempo section, whereabout you can click on it, drag it down if you want to slow it down, or drag it up, right? You can double click on it and then type in the tempo you want and press enter, and you'll see there right in this window right here, just this section here on this tempo ruler right here, you will see the tempo change. Currently 195 beats per minute, and there we go, 95 beats per minute. You also have your meter, which is currently at 4 to the 4x4. If you want to change or add a meter, you can just make sure that your playback cursor is at the position where you want to add the meter, and then you can click there, and then you can change the meter using the meter dialog box, right? Meter change dialog box. And that's another thing there. So if you want to add a meter, let's say you want to add 3 to 4, I can go click here, and now I've got 3 to 4. If I put my playback cursor there, right, and I add a meter again, there I want to go back to 4 to 4, and there's another meter there, right? If I want to delete it, I can go out with my tool right there on the ruler, click on it, and it will go, right? If I want to change it, I can go there, double click on it, right, on the flag, that yellow flag, double click on it, and I can alter that meter and click OK, and we're back to 4 to 4, right? So those are just the basics when it comes to meter and tempo, because they do influence how you sequence your track. The standard way to work with meters is 4 to the 4. Pro Tools, 4x4, sorry. Pro Tools, on the other hand, by default, opens up on 120 beats per minute when it comes to tempo. That's just something if you want to know or want to get a hang on, right? Cool. So let's start by sequencing MIDI. Now, if I want to sequence MIDI, let's say for now, I have chosen, and I want to press enter first, just to bring my playback cursor to the start again, right? Let's say I've chosen my bass, right? Remember, my bass is triggering two sounds, right? Which is this hard pick bass and this medium double bass here, because they're running through channel 1, both of them, right? Cool. So now I've got my bass, and I want to sequence it, right? That means I want to record bass using a MIDI keyboard, for example, right? I have to record the track I want to record on, simply because that's where I want my MIDI to be triggered, right? Or my recording to take place. So I'm telling Pro Tools that whenever I record, this is why you record arm. You're telling Pro Tools that wherever you record, you want, or whenever you are recording, you want it to record on this MIDI track right here, right? Then obviously you're going to have to record or enable your session, right? Now, here comes the part that normally confuses people, right? You're going to have, then you're recording, you've record armed this track, telling Pro Tools that you're going to be recording from this track. Then you've record armed your session, telling Pro Tools that you're about to record something into this track that is record armed, you know, or you're about to record something into your session. Now, there is what we call a count off. Count off is this section here. Currently, it is switched off, right? If you want to switch it on, you click on it, and as soon as it lights green, it is switched on. As currently, it is switched on. If I click on it, it is switched off again. And then you see a value here that says 2 bars, right? Now, the reason why we added a click track, this track right here, is so that if I want to use my count off, let's say of 2 bars, Pro Tools will give me 2 bars before it starts recording. So you're going to hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it starts recording, right? That is a count off. So let's put that into practice. I'm going to press spacebar so it starts recording, and it's going to give me a 2-bar count off before it starts recording. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then bam, then Pro Tools starts recording, right? That's why sometimes you will need a click track for your session. It can help you with the count off. If count off is off and I want to start recording, I'm going to record on my session again. Notice that it will start immediately recording as soon as I press the space bar. So I'm going to press enter again because I want to start from the beginning, and I'm going to press my space bar, and it starts recording directly after I've pressed my space bar. And I press stop recording by pressing my space bar again, and I've got my MIDI clip, right? So that's just something to take note into. So let's record some notes into Pro Tools. Let's go here. I'm going to switch on my count on off. If I want to change my count off to 1 bar, I can double click on the 2 bars value, right? And then I can change that right here to 1 bar, and then click on OK, right? Now that I've clicked on OK, now you can see it's going to give me a 1 bar count off, and let's test that out. I'm going to record arm, and then I'm going to press spacebar, 2, 3, 4, and then record, right? So basically that's how count off works. I'm going to undo that recording. I'm going to press enter because I want it to start from the beginning again, because I want to start from the beginning of the session and recording. So let's give it a 2 bar count off. I'm going to double click on there again, change that to 2 bars, and let's record MIDI quickly. Just for the sake of it, I'm just going to record any MIDI, and then we're going to take it from there. So let's record MIDI quickly. So I'm going to record up my session, and that's record armed my track. So that's the track I'm going to be recording from, and let's begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, I'm going to zoom in. As you can see now, I have recorded MIDI into this track right here. And basically what's happening is I've got MIDI data right here that plays through now through this MIDI track, and that track sends signal or sends the MIDI data into this plugin or this track, and that passes through this expand plugin and basically then triggers my bass right here. So if I press play from the beginning, let me just switch off my count off. Let's press play. As you can see now, These two tracks are being triggered by this MIDI here, right? And basically this is how you record using MIDI or a MIDI keyboard onto Pro Tools, right? So let's say maybe I want to record something else, but now I want to record it on my lead synth, right? So then I'm gonna record on my lead synth, right? I'm gonna record on my session, and since I want to start from the beginning, right, I can go there, press enter, or maybe let's say I want to start from bar 3. So let's go to bar 3 right here. Let's go to bar 3, and I want to start recording from bar 3. So I'll put my playback cursor right here. I'm going to record on my session. I'm going to activate my count off, so it gives me a count off. Then I am ready to start recording my lead. So let's start that. Then cool. Now I've recorded basically another section right there for my lead. So you see how Pro Tools works if you want to record from one track to the next, etc. Right? So we've got that down on the line. Now let's jump into our MIDI editing, right? And how you basically do that is working with what we call the editor window, right? The MIDI editor window. How you access the MIDI editor window, you can go to window, right? And then look for MIDI editor. That's one way, right? Or you can go Windows sign, right? Or control on Mac, and then equals at the same time, and you will have your MIDI editor open, right? This is where you get to edit window. For those who use Fruity Loops, this is like your piano roll, should I say, right? Cool. I'm gonna zoom in, and I want you guys to notice something, right? Right now, we don't know what track we're working on if I'm editing, basically, right? Because I just pressed control equals on Mac, or the Windows sign equals on Windows, right? Now we just have a MIDI editor open, right? There are ways to tell which track you're working on when you have the MIDI editor. One is this here, the section right here. It says MIDI editor and then it says bass, and that will tell you that this is the bass track. This is what we are working on, the bass MIDI track, right? This is why it's very important to name your tracks, right? Because then it's easy to identify. There is another way that you can tell, and this is to check where this pencil mark is. This pencil, you see this pencil mark, this little pencil mark here? Yes, that pencil mark, wherever it is, basically is where you are editing. So if I want to work on my lead synth, I can just click here, right? Just on the tracks, next to the track, basically just on this space right here. So if I want to change to pad, change to strings, change to drum kit, change to perk, right? But I want to work on my lead synth. As you can see here, lead synth, right? And it says, and 5 other tracks are showing in the current status. So I'm gonna then remove the other tracks so you don't see them. So let's close those. I just want my lead synth to show. That's how you show MIDI data on here from other tracks. So if I want to show the bass track MIDI data, I can just click on this radio button right here, and you can see there's blue tracks at the back right there. If I go with my pencil tool to the top, the blue tracks will come forward, right? If I go to my lead synth, the ones we've recorded, the red tracks will come forward, right? Or the red MIDI will come forward. And you can see with the color association, because this is red, and then bass is blue, If I want to sequence or add a pad sound while I'm still on this window, I can literally just go click on with the pencil tool on the pad sound. Now you can see here that there's nothing on the pad. Now I can add a pad sound. So let's add a pad sound with the pencil tool. Now how you add a note with the pencil tools, literally here's a pencil tool right here, as you can see, and you can click on there and click and drag if you want to, and that can allow you to determine the length. Notice that my pad track is green, right? Or my pad MIDI is green, and that is because here the color is green. Now that I've added a note right here on my MIDI editor, if I press Command equals, that takes me to my edit window. You'll see that the pad now has a note in it, and it didn't previously, right? Then I'm going to move back to my MIDI editor, and that's going to be Control equals. And now in my MIDI editor, I'm going to start editing sounds. So now, if I want to add more sounds for my bass, I have to come here because they are all showing, right? If I want, I can hide all the other sounds and just leave my bass only, right? But let's say I have my pad and my lead synth showing, right? But I only want to work on my bass in the meantime. I want to add sounds on my bass. I need to make sure that the pencil tool is on my bass. Then whenever I add sounds with my pencil tool, right there, right there, right there, right there. Whenever I add sound with my pencil tool, now it will show blue because I'm working on my bass. If I wanted to add more sounds on my pad, I'll go and select the pad with the pencil tool. Just allocate the pad with the pencil tool. Now I can add pad sounds there, pad sounds there, pad sounds there. There we go, right? So that's basically how you add notes. Now, another way of editing notes is by moving them around, right? So if you come with your pencil tool, hover straight on the note that you want to work with, you can click and move it when you see that hand. If you want to remove it or delete a note, you can Alt, come with the pencil tool. I want you to notice what happens when I press Alt. Look at that. The eraser side of the pencil tool shows up. So if I've got a pencil tool like that, the drawing side shows up, right? As soon as I press Alt, the eraser shows up and I click and I can remove notes, any unwanted notes. If I want to change the size or the length of the MIDI note, again with the pencil tool, I can move towards the side of the note and click and drag. Move towards the side of the note, click and drag using the pencil tool, right? You can come up here and use a grabber tool, which is this tool right here. And the grabber tool literally just allows you to grab and move. Grab and move. You understand? And right now I'm editing both sounds and my pad at the same time by dragging and moving just by simply clicking on the note, as you can see there, right? If I want to move my synth now, I can move that around just like that using my grabber tool. If you want to select, you can use the grabber tool, right? As soon as you see the cross like that, you see the cross on my mouse, click, drag, and you can select the sounds, right? Same way, I can use a selector tool. Selector tool, on the other hand, will select throughout the timeline, just like that. Then you also have a trim tool. Now that I've selected, now I can trim all of the ones that I've selected using my trim tool, and they all get trimmed. You get? And that basically determines the length, right? Yes. So that basically now deals with how to sequence MIDI notes, basically. Anything that has to do with sequencing MIDI notes, that's basically it. That's showed you how to delete, add, change their length, move them around, basically drawing them. You can add a MIDI note by drawing it with the pencil tool. But now what I want to show you is how to quantize. Now, if you are unfamiliar with quantization, right? If you're unfamiliar with quantization, what you want to pay attention to is that quantization basically deals with placing each note to a grid, right? That means, as you can see, this is a grid line, 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 right? So I want to place each note onto the grid. As you can see, this is not on the grid. This is on the grid. Let's find another one. Let's look on the bass quickly. Just the bass tracks only. That's off grid. That's off grid. As you can see, just by a tiny bit. This is off grid. This is off grid. This is off grid. This is off grid. So maybe I sequenced it and I was kind of correct with my timing, but in some cases I've missed it, right? If you want to then put certain notes into grid, right? What you can do, maybe you don't want to do all of them You don't want to place all of them onto grid. You just want to place some of them into grid and stuff, or according to a grid, align them to a grid. Then you can come with your grabber tool, select again the ones that you want to put on the grid, right? And then go to event, right? Event operations, and then you're going to go to quantize, right? Then you're going to switch the parameters, pick the parameters that you want. We want to affect the note on parameter. Basically, this picks the start of the note, which is here, right? We don't want to affect the note off, and we want to preserve the length, because maybe I liked the length of the note. I just want to shift it, but I want to keep, I want to preserve the length. And then I can choose, I want you to quantize to the closest 16th note, 8th note, quarter note, half note, or whole note. That's up to you. So right now I want to quantize to the closest 16th note, and I'm going to click on apply. As you can see, they shifted. I'm going to undo that again. Pay attention to the selected notes as soon as I click apply. And as you can see, they have shifted. I'm going to undo it again for the purpose of the next example. So now again, they're off note. Now let's say you don't want to work on particular notes. You want to quantize all of them at once, right? You want to make sure that they're all quantized to the 16th note, all of them. What you can do is you close your edit window, you move towards the clip, select the clips, right? So I'm selecting them by clicking on shift and selecting. So I select one, then I'll click on shift, select, basically shift click with the grabber tool. And then what I will do is events, right? Event operations, quantize or alt 0, right? And then I only want to change the note on. I want to preserve the duration of the notes. I just want to quantize them to a grid with 16th notes, and I will click on apply, and it will shift all of them. I'm going to undo that. Pay attention to what happens to the clips when it shifts it to the nearest 16th note. When I click on apply, and I click on apply again, as you can see, it shifts them back. It shifts them basically and aligns them to the grid. And basically, that's how we sequence on sequence MIDI in Pro Tools. The same concept then applies when it comes to instrument tracks. Literally the same concept. The only difference between the two now, between MIDI and instrument tracks, is that when I'm sequencing MIDI, the MIDI data plays here and triggers the audio that's here. Whilst when I'm sequencing MIDI on an instrument track, the MIDI data will play on that particular instrument track, but will trigger the audio that is on that instrument track. Just to make sure that I've clarified that understanding. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next video where we talk about MIDI controls and then clip arrangement.